recording. All right. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for your patience and for being here today. We are going to get started in just a moment. I want to let you know that we are offering simultaneous ASL and Spanish interpretation. So for folks who would like to access any Spanish, the Spanish language channel, please click on the globe at the bottom of your screen. It's most likely on the bottom of your screen where it says interpretation, and you can select Spanish. If folks want to be able to access live simultaneous ASL interpretation, please message either me directly in the chat, or you can just message to everyone in the chat, whatever your comfort is, to let me know so I can make sure that you can pin the ASL interpreter. I'm just going to wait one moment to make sure we have folks accessing what they need. Okay. And the other thing I would like to invite you all to do is to type your names, pronouns if you're comfortable sharing, and your title or organization in the chat. If you'd like to share that with everyone, please go ahead and select everyone from the drop-down menu. All right, and I'm not seeing any folks asking questions about accessing Spanish interpretation or wanting simultaneous ASL interpretation, but if that changes, feel free to message in the chat, and I'll make sure I put a note in the chat as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name's Brandy from Violence Free Colorado. I'm really excited to be here today with Olive from the Address Confidentiality Program, the ACP. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Olive. And I'm excited that you're all here. And hopefully you can all introduce yourselves in the chat, and I will make sure the chat is actually on. Okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Olive Henline. I am the new Outreach Coordinator with the Address Confidentiality Program. I started at the beginning of August, so I've had the time to acquaint myself to the program and begin trainings with application assistance. And so that's the intention of our presentation and our time together today, is to go over the program information for the ACP and to train folks for becoming application assistants. And then also, since it's voting season, you might be wondering how people can have a confidential address while still being able to vote in their local elections. And so I included a portion to my presentation about that as well. Feel free to ask any questions as you go along. I'm going to be checking the chat. Brandy is also going to be checking the chat, so you can go that way, or feel free to raise your hand in the Zoom meeting as well, whatever is most comfortable. And yeah, we'll get rolling. So let's see here. There's always housekeeping things. I think I've got it figured out now. All right, so this is kind of what to expect as we go forward. We'll do an overview of what the Address Confidentiality Program even is. We'll talk about what it means to be eligible as a participant in the program, and we'll review the statutes of the ACP. We'll talk about some myths and misconceptions about eligibility, and discuss how participants can use the substitute address to support their safety plan and their confidentiality. And then we'll talk about ACP and confidential voting, which are two separate options for individuals to be active and participate in their right to vote while still maintaining confidentiality. And then we'll also talk about the responsibilities of an application assistant once you're certified. All right, so the ACP was created in 2007, and we began accepting participants in 2008. It is a program to support survivors of actual or threatened violence, and that could be sexual assault, domestic or intimate partner violence. It can include stalking, harassment, human trafficking, everything under that umbrella. And the program offers two services. First, a legal substitute address, and second, mail forwarding. This is a program that is free for citizens of Colorado, and it's meant to be a supplemental element of a comprehensive safety plan. The confidential address is something that you can use as a survivor of violence to protect the information of where you're literally living and use a substitute address and any records that would reflect your address.
Alice, I just want to jump in really quick and ask if you wouldn't mind, could you slow down your speech just a little bit for the interpreters?
Of course.
Thank you so much. No, it's a common request, so thank you.
Sure. If that comes up again, let me know. I tend to speak quickly anyway. So since the beginning of our program, we have provided support for 11,500 participants, and we currently have about 4,500 participants who are actively in the program. When you are a participant, you are certified for a 4-year period with the option to renew certification, and some folks choose not to renew for whatever reasons that might be. But so that's the amount of individuals that we've been able to serve over the 15 years that we've been a program. And we have the application assistants, who are the individuals that are commonly interacting with survivors of violence. They can be advocates, they could be district attorneys, members of law enforcement, really anyone who is commonly interacting with survivors of violence and becomes certified with the ACP to help participants enroll as a program participant. So that's what an application assistant is. And out of the 64 counties in Colorado, we have some application assistants who have agreed to provide their services and help people enroll throughout the entire state. And then we also have application assistants who are directly serving particular counties. And currently we have 57 counties with application assistants providing services directly in those counties. My goal as the outreach coordinator is to expand that reach and to get application assistants who know the ins and outs of particular counties to support those communities. But that's more of my job description than what we need to go into. So on this slide, you'll see the green states being the ones that have comparable programs to the Colorado ACP. Some states call their program ACP like we do, and others call it Safe at Home. They're more or less the same thing. Each state has different statutes and ways that it's written up for their program to exist, and they all have different just different details on how it works and how it looks. But we wanted to let you know that there are similar options in other states. And while we're on this, it's important to note that if you are a survivor of violence who is a program participant in, say, the Nebraska program, if you move to Colorado, you do need to enroll in the program separately because of those different statutes. And typically, states require evidence to apply to the program, which we'll discuss the evidence piece later, but you can use evidence from other states. And so you don't have to start completely from scratch. You just have to follow the specific needs of each state's program. All right, so this is kind of the process for a program participant to get enrolled into the ACP. It's application assistants who are really determining the eligibility of a participant and helping them through that process of applying. So I know that the chart of sorts is a little blurry even for myself through this virtual format, and so I'm going to try to read through it and explain. I just wanted to apologize for that in advance. So starting at the top, we see that a survivor of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, harassment, they meet with an ACP application assistant. Moving down to that next shape, is not quite a rectangle, but the application assistant provides information about what the ACP is, They talk to the program or the potential program participant about eligibility, and they determine if it's going to be a good fit for their comprehensive safety plan. If that is the case and they want to pursue the program, the application assistant will then support them in completing the paperwork and then submit that application to the ACP. Moving to the next rectangle, the Colorado ACP would receive that completed application and the attached evidence and would review the information and certify that participant. Once a participant is certified into the program, they receive a substitute address that they can begin using. And the participant would also get a welcome folder that provides all sorts of information on how the substitute address can be used. And then on that next oval, the ACP participant has that substitute address and can begin using that in any sort of records that might have their address reflected. And finally, the last rectangle, we see that first class and certified mail that is addressed to the substitute address, which is the ACP office. The mail goes there and then is forwarded on to the participant's actual confidential address. So they can still receive their mail while maintaining their actual address is confidential. So how do participants find application assistance? First, they could just be accessing advocacy and support in whatever way that looks. So, they could be going to a domestic violence shelter. They could be reaching out to a therapist or seeking medical support. It could be a number of things. And there are we commonly focus on training individuals to become application assistants if they might interact with survivors of violence. So we want to have somebody who is already certified there or is at least familiar with the program and can direct them on to an application assistant elsewhere or online. And the ACP website is a wonderful resource because we have a list of all of the application assistants that have consented to share their agency and contact information. And we have that listed by county so people can find application assistants that are near them, and they can find an advocate or an application assistant that is a good fit for them and their needs. All right, so eligibility with how it's written in the statutes for a program participant to be able to apply. First, they must be a survivor of actual or threatened domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, or harassment. And I'd like to emphasize the part of threatened. The violence could have absolutely occurred and be the actual violence that's already happened. But it can also be preventative in that if there is a threat for violence to occur, somebody can still apply in the program and hopefully maintain their address as confidential so that the violence is less likely to occur in the first place. As long as they have that second element here of the fear for safety, they are an appropriate person to apply. If they are feeling harassed and maybe so just to back up, the harassment piece can also be kind of an umbrella statement. So that can include things like elder abuse, or perhaps if somebody has witnessed a crime and they're facing threats because of what they have witnessed, they would also be an appropriate person to apply if they have the element of that fear for safety. Thirdly, relocation. So if somebody has lived in the same home or apartment for a number of years, it's likely that their abuser, the person making those threats, and the general community knows where they live. And so that relocation element is to start those records fresh. I want to indicate that there is an opportunity if somebody is to move and start their records to connect their actual address and their actual name together. There is a 90-day period where if they later apply for the ACP, they can redact records that were already made for a 90-day period. That one I don't always say very well, so I'm going to try it again with another phrase. So If you move, you're not a program participant yet, and then you decide to enroll and you realize, oh, I want to protect these records. I don't want my name and my actual address to be connected together. You have a 90-day window to have those records redacted from 90 days prior to your program enrollment. If that one has any questions, please put it in the chat, as well as any other questions as we go. Let's see, the fourth piece for eligibility is to live in Colorado and be located here. If you are somebody who has multiple properties and maybe one of them is in Colorado, but you're located in California, it would be more appropriate to apply for the California program. And lastly, you need evidence to support your application. Evidence in this context is not the same as evidence in like a police investigation or that sort of a thing. It certainly can be. Evidence to support an ACP application can be a number of things. It can be a protection order or a police report for sure, but it can also be a medical record. It can be perhaps a letter written by a religious official if you're speaking to somebody in your place of worship. It could be an advocate that writes a letter as well, including application assistance. So you can write a letter supporting that you've had the conversation with this survivor, that it's an appropriate fit for them, they're fearful for their safety, and you're supporting that application. So that can count as well. It's very comprehensive and open. Oh, I'm having trouble progressing to the next slide here. One moment. There we go.
Olive, I just want to hop in one more time. I know you've been able to slow down, and I really appreciate that. I'm just noticing that for Spanish interpretation, I think we need to go just a little bit slower, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
Just want to put that little reminder out there. Thank you, though.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So everything that we've been talking about so far with somebody enrolling, that person is the primary participant. That's the person who has either experienced that violence or the threats of violence. So if you are somebody living in the same home as a primary participant, you can enroll into the program as a co-applicant. You don't have to be related to the primary participant. You just have to live in the same home. So it can certainly be relatives, it can be a roommate, anything like that. If you are a legal adult, we need to have your consent to be in the program. And if you are a child, we need the consent of your guardian. Regardless of custody splits, we just need somebody who is a guardian of that child to consent for them to be part of the program. We'll talk about some eligibility myths now. One misconception is that participants have to be citizens of the United States, and that is not true. We do not ask for citizenship. That is not something we care about. We don't ask for birth certificates or social security cards when you're enrolling in the program. If you are living in Colorado, that is sufficient. Another myth is that a survivor has to have an order of protection in order to enroll. That is also not true. You can use an order of protection as evidence to enroll in the ACP, but you can use a number of other forms of evidence to apply. Next, the myth is a survivor must have moved within the last 90 days in order to be eligible. That 90-day piece sometimes throws people off because that's referring to the record redaction that I mentioned earlier. And I just want to note that if you do move and more than 90 days has passed, 90 days is what is legally required to be redacted. But if it's maybe been 4 months rather than 3, if you as a program participant mentions that you have a heightened security risk and you're in this program to protect your location, that could persuade individuals in the office wherever that record needs to be changed to do so. It's always worth asking. I also want to note that the best time to enroll in this program is just before you move, so that you can start those records fresh. But you can enroll in the program without a decided day that you're going to be moving.
Never seen this these columns for gender before.
I couldn't quite hear what that question was. I'm sorry.
No, sorry about that, Olive. I think someone accidentally came off mute, so I just handled that, but thank you.
Sure. If that was a question, feel free to put it in the chat so others can see as well. But yeah, let's see. Oh, if you are planning on moving in the future, you don't have to have any sort of timeline for when that happens. You can still apply for the program with the intention to move in the future without a deadline. Nextly, a myth is that a participant must live in a permanent residence to be eligible. We do have to have an address to put on the application that is a location to protect, because that's part of how the program functions, but it does not have to be a permanent residence. It can be a temporary shelter or a hotel or motel. We've used an RV campsite before. We just have to know a place that you are living to protect. And on that note, we cannot put a PO box as an actual address because you're not hunched up living in a PO box. That doesn't work. You can only use a PO box if that happens to be the address used by a temporary shelter where you're living. All right, so beyond eligibility, there are some things that might indicate to you as an application assistant that someone is a good fit to enroll in the program. If somebody has either just moved or is planning on moving soon, that would be an indication that it's a good program fit because you can redact those records for that 90 days retroactively, or you can start records fresh. I don't know what I'm going to get rid of that second bullet point because that doesn't really apply. If you have any public records, or rather, if you don't have public records that have your actual address, that would be a good indication of program fit so that your actual address isn't already revealed in public records. Let's see, I'm going to try to speed through just a hair so that we can finish in a timely manner. But I want to indicate, or I want to point your attention to the last bullet point of the survivor has to be aware that the program is meant to be, or I guess the individual needs to be prepared for self-advocacy because we as the ACP certainly answer any questions that they have as they go through the process of navigating how their substitute address can be used. But it is the responsibility of the survivor and the program participant to make the contact with those various agencies to have their substitute address reflected. On this slide of negative indicators of program fit, I want to emphasize that none of these alone mean that somebody should not apply for the program. We definitely want people to apply if they, if they have that fear for safety, if they think that this program would benefit their safety plan. But there are always things to think about of where your record might reflect your actual address. And we have some ways around everything. If somebody is buying real property, there are communications that they can have with their county clerk and assessor to protect their actual address. We can use alias names in order to support utilities being delivered to the actual address of where somebody is living. There's always things that we can help people sort through so that they can still protect their actual address while being in the program. There's just always things to think about just in case. People might not be thinking that expansively about where their address could be. Once somebody is enrolled as a program participant, they receive an authorization card that looks like this. On the left-hand side here is the front of the card they receive, and that is the substitute address listed on the left-hand side. Every household receives a unit number that helps us sort their mail a little bit quicker. And so that is consistent for all co-applicants for one home versus the authorization number on the right-hand side. At the bottom of that side of the card is a unique number for each individual participant, including children. They receive their own card and their own authorization number. Oh, and this card is something that you can use as a participant to share with any agency or office that needs to see your substitute address so that they know how it is to be used, and to confirm the validity of the program. Some individuals don't know about the program, and so this is a way to confirm that this is legitimate. This is your legal substitute address, and here are some statutes that reflect it, and a way to get a hold of the ACP office if it's a program that's not familiar to you. When the ACP receives mail on behalf of participants, we are the designated confirmation of receipt, and we will forward first-class certified and legal mail. We do not forward junk mail or packages, with just a few exceptions with packages. We do forward license plates and bank checks. We also know that packages are a pretty big part of our world right now. So we have some ways that we can help people navigate that. One way is the Amazon lockers that is pictured here, but we also encourage people to think about maybe making an order with their billing name and address reflected accurately, and then for their mailing address, either assigning an alias name to themselves so that it comes to their actual address but has a fake name on the package itself. Or maybe they can choose a mailing address to go to a friend or a family member that is willing to receive the package on their behalf. There's always a couple workarounds and ways that we want to support people in being a part of, well, one, receiving packages, but also just the regular world around them. So this is, I'll backtrack on the safe label name in a moment, but this envelope is how our mail looks when it's outgoing. We receive mail for the actual person's name and their substitute address, and we repackage mail to then send along to their actual address. And they can choose to either have the mail that we send outgoing to have their actual name reflected, or they can use a safe label name. The safe label name is optional, and it's just an additional tool for their safety plan to further separate the actual address and actual name from being connected. One example of somebody using a safe label name could be if maybe their abuser or someone who knows them works in the postal service and they don't know what their route is. If the participant is fearful that that individual could see their actual name and figure out where they're literally living, that could be a huge hole in their safety plan. So a safe label name is an option for people to use in those instances, as well as all other sorts of reasons. There are no qualifications that somebody, or any boxes that people have to check off to use a safe label name. They can just decide that they want to. And a safe label name is not a legal name change. It's just a fake name for you to receive your mail to a fake name. And you want it to be something that is not connected to yourself. If your name is Jessica or Michael, you don't want to use Jess or Mike as your safe label name, because you know exactly who that can be connected to you. You also don't want to use something like Beyonce or Luna Lovegood, something that would stand out. And you can certainly use a male or female or just general name. You can pick really whatever you choose. All right. So when participants are using their substitute address, it is their legal address, and there's a lot of agencies that must accept it. The court system must accept your legal substitute address. Law enforcement, schools, you can enroll a child into a school district without the school knowing your literal address. You can receive county-based services like TANF or food SNAP benefits. You can have your driver's license reflect your substitute address, and you can also register to vote for your appropriate voting precinct without your actual address being publicly known. And we'll dive into the voting piece here soon. Private businesses are encouraged but not required to accept the substitute address. They're not required to follow the statutes of the ACP. A lot of them do if they're aware of your heightened security need as a participant, but they are not legally required to do so. I mentioned courts on the last slide. Since we're a little short on time, just know that there are certain requirements that must be met in the court setting before disclosing an actual address of a program participant. And this information, as well as my presenter notes, will be provided to you all. And so you're welcome to read that at your own time or reach out to me with any questions as well. Just want to make sure we're moving along here. Things that are confidential for a participant are where they're literally living and anything that is unique identifying information. I put in here voting precinct as well. That is confidential because you as an ACP voter are most of the time voting through your mail-in ballot. Things that are not confidential are that you are an ACP participant. If a school system or a law enforcement officer calls the ACP and asks us to confirm if you are an ACP participant, we need to be able to say that, yes, you are a participant. This is your legal substitute address. We do not share your actual address in those moments, so that is still confidential. We are just confirming that this is a legitimate program and that this is the address for them to accept. Let's see. So we'll get into ACP voting. There's really two options for people to vote. ACP voting is specifically for ACP participants. We provide the form for program participants to enroll as an ACP voter once they're a program participant. It's part of the welcome folder that we provide to everybody who is part of the program. They complete that registration form and submit it to their county ACP election staff member. That information is also included in the welcome folder, but basically every county has one or two designated people that work with ACP voters in particular. They receive the applications. That one or two staff member would be aware of the actual address of that ACP voter in order to confirm that they are voting for the correct precinct. But no one beyond that would have the ACP voter's actual address. The ACP voter would receive mail-in ballots for their appropriate precinct and send those in. And the main thing to keep in mind is if you are an ACP voter in a home with other voters who are enrolled, to check the authorization number. The ballot should come in and be signed with the authorization number of the ballot matching the number on your authorization card that I showed earlier. If those two numbers and that signature do not match, that ballot will likely be discarded. So it's important, if you want your vote to count, to double check that information. Another option for protecting voter information is confidential voting. This is not something for, you do not have to be an ACP participant to be a confidential voter. This is an option for survivors of violence with the intention of protecting the address of those survivors through confidential voting by not connecting their name and their address together. It's very similar to ACP voting and kind of gave inspiration actually for the ACP program's existence, which is really cool. But the intention is to protect the information of individuals who would otherwise be unsafe by voting and disclosing where they are residing. To register as a confidential voter, somebody must visit their county clerk and recorder to fill out a voter record confidentiality request form, which is a mouthful. But if they go to the clerk, county, and recorder and ask to become a confidential voter, they should know what they're talking about. There is a fee of $5 to become a confidential voter. ACP voters can do so without a charge. So that's another key difference. The confidential voters can be, or rather the address of confidential voters can be accessed through county election staff members. It is marked confidential. The address is marked confidential on the registration and should not show up on any third-party websites of Colorado voters or anything like that. But the address would be known by more individuals than the address of an ACP voter. Once registered, confidential voters can vote either by mail-in ballots or at a polling location. But we always encourage both confidential and ACP voters to do mail-in ballots so that they are not going to a polling location and having their general location slightly more known. We just encourage that people are mindful of that potential risk. Sorry, I'm just scrolling here. We also encourage that ACP and confidential voters both do not participate in polling or petitions. Petitions in particular could be being done by private entities that are not required to accept the substitute address and can also, potentially sell voter information to other businesses. And so that could be another potential hole in a safety plan and a way for an actual address to be discovered by the general public. We're nearing the end of ACP application assistant training. So it's important for you to know as you're going through this process of becoming certified, what your responsibilities could be. Firstly, an application assistant is the primary source of information about the ACP to survivors of violence. It's your responsibility to provide information about the program, and if you have any questions, to reach out to the ACP to help provide that information both to yourself and to the potential participant. We recognize that some individuals might hear about the program and feel that it's not a good fit for them, or perhaps not be ready for the program. And that's completely okay too. We want to make sure that the resource is known about in case it does become a fit for them or someone they know in the future. An application assistant can also help determine program eligibility by going through the eligibility in the statutes, as well as assessing the program fit of that individual. If somebody has multiple records that reflect their actual address that are beyond that 90-day mark, they might not receive the full benefits of the program protecting their actual address. So that might be something to consider. But if somebody is a good fit for the program and is eligible according to the statutes, you can certainly submit that paperwork for the ACP to process. Let's see, if you have any questions about eligibility and program fit as well, please reach out to us and we're happy to sort through that with you. If you do complete that paperwork and submit it with the evidence to the ACP, we process those applications pretty quickly. We take about 1 to 3 business days to complete that information, or rather review that information and complete the certification to then provide a substitute address for individuals to start using. It's a pretty quick turnaround, which is great. Now that we're pretty much there, and I'll double check for questions here in a moment. We do have a skills assessment for you to complete to ensure that you were mindful throughout this training. And if you have any questions about how the program works, that we can kind of sort through that before you're interacting with individuals who are wanting to enroll. We have an application assistant agreement, which basically confirms that you are wanting to be an application assistant. You provide your contact information so that we can reach out to you when you need to consider renewing for the program, or to provide the information. We provide a packet, a folder for application assistants for samples of how they can write their evidence letters, and just some other guides. After certification, you will receive that welcome email and electronic as well as physical starter kit that includes that information. It has a packet of the statutes for the program, and just some other tools that you might need or choose to use when interacting with survivors of violence that are enrolling. And then you can help survivors enroll. And I want to indicate to you that it is up to your individual and agency availability if you interact with someone to help them enroll in the program. Some agencies are specific in meeting individuals that are receiving services through their agency, and that is completely okay. And others provide services to people who are not clients but are interested in enrolling, and that is completely okay too. So it's up to you and your availability. We want to make sure you know that. We do ask whether you want your information posted on our website. And if you are an individual who can really only provide services for your agency, that might not be a good fit for you to have your information on the website. Or, if you think that maybe individuals could find your agency information and become a client and then enroll in the program, perhaps it is a good fit. So I would ask, if you're uncertain on whether that's an appropriate fit for you, to ask your supervisor or director to be sure. When we share your information, we share your first name, your agency affiliation, and your email address so that they can get a hold of you. We do ask people for their middle names and last names, but we don't put that on the website. We've just had application assistants with the first and last name the same, and so the middle name helps us distinguish those people in our database. Lastly, of course, and we'll dive into questions in a moment. If you have any questions after we finish this time together, you can certainly reach out to our main number and email, as well as my own. The main email address there is or rather, if I'm out of the office, it's very closely monitored by other individuals who might be able to answer your inquiries a little bit quicker if I happen to be on vacation or just maybe doing something that requires my focus. But I'm still pretty quick to respond myself as well. And so you can reach out to my email and number as well. I'll let the contact information slide stay up here for a while just so that you all can access it. And just before I go to questions, I want to make sure you all know that we have a bilingual staff member who speaks Spanish. We do have a TTY number, and we utilize Language Link if anyone needs languages beyond ASL and Spanish. We want to be able to provide those services to anyone who might need it. So I am open for any questions about the program, any specifics of how the substitute address is used, the voter information, really anything. Let me know and I'll do my best to answer.
Thank you so much, Olive. This has been wonderful information. So folks, you can type your chat or question into the chat, or if you would like to unmute yourself and ask Olive a question directly. If you're having a problem with unmuting and you would like to, just let me know in the chat. I can make sure you can unmute. And while you all are thinking about your questions, I'm going to go ahead and put up a quick poll here. Let's see. Well, or I'm not, because for some reason, the poll is deciding not to work today. So hopefully we can, what I will do is I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the feedback form, which has the same questions as the poll. I just put that into the chat. So that is in English and in Spanish. So if you wouldn't mind filling out that form really quickly, I'd really appreciate it. We'll make sure feedback gets back to Olive as well. What questions does everyone have? Olive, would you like me to post the link to the skills assessment in the chat?
Sure. I just want to note really quick that right now our skills assessment is only in English, but we've recently sent it over for translation, and so that should be ready on our website very soon.
All right, it looks like we don't have any questions right now, but here again is Olive's contact information, and love to thank all of you for being patient with our slow start, and grateful thanks to our interpreters, Graciela and Jen. And if questions come up, you can contact Olive directly, you can contact me and I'll pass that along, whatever works best for you all. I also want to give a quick reminder shout out for December. Our Facts and Snacks webinar is actually going to be 90 minutes long. So we'll have a little longer time together, but we're going to be talking with folks from Rocky Mountain Victim Law Center about confidentiality and privilege, super fun stuff. So keep an eye out for that announcement. And it looks like if no one has questions, it looks like we can go ahead and wrap up. Is there anything else you would like to add, Olive?
Just real quick, that skills assessment is something that you can take as many times as you need to take. We do ask for 100%, but if there is a question that's giving you trouble, I'm happy to walk you through it. And yeah, we want more and more people to become application assistants. So if there's something that's holding you up, don't let that deter you from reaching out and from completing your certification.
What a great reminder. Yes, everybody become an ACP certified folks, and we want to make sure that everybody has the information they need to support survivors. So awesome, awesome information. Thank you so much, Olive, and thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting me be here. I'm really excited to get into the work that I'm new to, but yeah, I'm just really excited to be here, and thank you all for joining and for your interest in learning about the ACP.
Right. We'll send out some follow-up information in about a week or so, and thank you all again. Have a good rest of your day.